Okay, we are live. Welcome, Professor Yirmi Pinkus.
Good afternoon or good morning.
Well, we're both in Israel, so for us it's good afternoon, and for the rest of the world, it's good morning, good night, what have you. And it's a joy to have you on the show. I've known you and your work for some time. We both worked at the Shenkar College. So welcome to the Children's Literature channel of the New Books Network. My name is Mel Rosenberg, and I'm the host. And I'm really excited to be here with you. May I call you Yirmi, or am I going to call you Professor Pinkus the whole time?
No, I'd rather please call me Yirmi and I'll call you Mel, and that's fine.
Okay, so we're here to celebrate a gorgeous book which you illustrated. It's not only gorgeous visually; it's a gorgeous picture book, a classic, which you illustrated, which was just published by Kalaniot in the States. Lily Rosenstreich, which is a personal and mutual friend of ours. A few words about this lovely book, and show it to everybody.
Well, this is the book, and it was written by a classical Hebrew writer, author for children, whose name is Haya Shenhav, written like 30 years ago, and it tells a story. It's a short story, a fable that tells the story.
One second, Yirmi, for the podcast people who can't see the gorgeous book but can hear the podcast. It's called 100 Rooms.
100 Rooms. And maybe I'll try to show some of the double spread.
Absolutely.
It's a very simple story and a beautiful story about this guy who wants to have a new house, but he wants to have the biggest house possible. And he asked the builders to build him a bigger house and a bigger house. Eventually, they built him a house with 100 rooms. Well, I didn't draw all of them, but you can imagine. Anyway, he's very happy about it, and he starts locating his stuff in the rooms, as you can see here. Well, this guy has so many rooms. He has one room for forks, and one room for napkins, and one room for windows, for beds, and one room for chairs, and so on. Eventually, he finds out that it's really a bit frustrating to keep on living like that, because if you need something, you have to take it from so many rooms. For example, if you want to arrange yourself dinner, you have to visit like 5 or 6 rooms, as you can see here in this double spread, which is a little bit like a comics panel. So he's really miserable, and then he finds out the solution. He simply sells those rooms to people around him, neighbors, friends, and so on. Each one can get a room according to his own taste or her own taste. You see, like this lady takes the kitchen, those guys take the paintings. And he finds out that the only thing you need is one room with one bed, one chair, one ball, and so on. And he's so happy about it because now he has time to walk around the city and the parks and say hi to his new friends, which he met at the auction. So it's a very funny short story, but very clever about how much stuff do we really need, why do we accumulate stuff which we do not need, and what's the price that we pay for overloading our life with stuff.
It's similar to the trope of the Jewish story of the lady who goes to the rabbi with the house is too crowded, and he tells her to put a goat inside. But this is a very clever take on this, and I don't know of other books that have used this approach to this famous adage of not having too much in your life.
I can't imagine other books, but I'm sure that the topic is no. It's not the first time people deal with these topics, and sure. Unfortunately, even Marie Kondo, everybody deals with this problem of too much stuff in our lives. But I think the author, what she's emphasizing here is the fact that he's replacing people with stuff, with things. And the minute he gets rid of the things, he doesn't get rid of everything because he needs some of the stuff. He needs a bed.
He keeps room number 100.
That's what he needs. Not more than that. But once there's, I would say, less environmental space, there is more emotional space. And in this space, he can invite his new friends just to share his world. Before that, he couldn't do that. He had to share it with them.
It's a beautiful story. So tell us, please, how this book came alive with new illustrations 30 years later and has appeared in the United States. How did this happen?
It's a nice story. The book was the book was illustrated like 30 or 35 years ago as part of the project of the Hebrew University in Jerusalem, educational project, which was with the years forgotten in the archives. And the PJ library people here in Israel, somehow they managed to get through this archive and found this story, and they loved it. And they asked the university if they are willing to republish the book, but of course in an updated version. And they said, Yirmi, would you like to draw it? Now, usually my reaction to everything in life is no. First of all, I say no, then I think.
Say, okay, there's a story here also.
I learned my lesson, let's say. But I said, okay, because I'll tell you why. Because in most of the cases, it's not just a technical question of, okay, I can draw this or I can draw that. It's a question of subject matter. Does the visual subject matter appeals to my own style, to my own inner world? And once I read this story, I said, okay, send me the story. I want to read it. A, I fell in love. B, I think after 20 seconds, I understood immediately how I'm going to draw it. Because after I showed the illustration that popped to my mind, which was later illustrated in the book, and I knew immediately that the rooms are going to look like this. Like squares, flat squares, not necessarily the size of a real room. Because, when you as an illustrator, when they tell you, okay, now you have to draw 100 rooms, that's frightening. But then if you think about it for 20 seconds, you understand that A, you don't have to draw all those rooms. B, there are visual solutions which might fit the book in a better way than the obvious, drawing of everything that is written there. So I fell in love with the book. I got the basic concept of how to draw it. So I said, of course, yes, just give me time. I said, oh no, we don't have time. We have a few months. I said, okay, double the time and I'll take the job. And that's what happened. And it was a great experience. And I was able to work for the Hebrew University in a very special technique, which was popular in the 60s, 50s and 60s, before the computerized printing methods evolved. That gives it the colors a very unique effect. The minute they pop out of the book, the red is red and the yellow is yellow, really like you had it 50 or 60 years ago. And then
One second, can you explain how that happens?
Yeah. Today, the common, I would say, method of printing picture books today is CMYK method, offset, which means the computer takes the illustration, the full color illustration, and automatically the computer transforms most of those colors into a 4-color system. Those colors are printed or overlaid one on top of the other, but since they are transparent, the combination of the transparent colors create all kinds of colors. Not every color, every possible colors, but a lot of colors. This method is considerably, I would say, profitable. It's not too complicated. The computer is doing a big part of the color separation, and that's very common. Now, what I did, I made those color separation myself by hand, which means I drew all the reds separately, and all the blues separately, and all the yellow part of the illustration separately. and they were printed in a much higher quality, which is called Pantone printing. Like each color was chosen by me, the most beautiful red that I wanted to have, the most beautiful blue, like Turkish blue that I wanted to have, etc. So we used 4 colors like the CMYK, but not the CMYK colors, but other colors. I really think that, I don't know how this, if the screen reflects the richness of those colors. Anyway, once you touch the book, once you touch the paper, you feel immediately the colors somehow they shine. It's different.
So there's an intentional throwback here to the days in which the book was written.
Maybe even earlier. I think the book was the story was written in the 80s. I'm speaking about a method which was popular in the 50s, 60s, maybe at the beginning of the 70s. Today, this method is considered like a bit posh. It's very expensive. It's more expensive than the usual CMYK printing. So publishers usually are not keen about this method, but once they have it, they admit it's the beauty of this printing.
So I have a question for you, because you're also a professor of illustration and cartoons at Shenkar College. You have an international reputation, not only as an author and an artist illustrator, but also as a professor teacher. How do you overcome the when you come down to illustrate the book and you say, okay, I want to be me, I want to be Yirmi, but you also have this I don't know if it's self-doubt. Do you have this element where you have to overcome the, I don't know, worry, anxiety that people are going to look at your work through some kind of academic lens? This is something I wanted to ask you. How do you manage to keep that aside? Do you understand my question? Are you self-conscious because you're also a professor?
Okay, I think I got you. Yes, well, when we teach illustration, we talk. We talk a lot, we analyze a lot, we try to be very intellectual, to convey our ideas to our students. Now, rule number 1 for me in creating a new book or a new story or whatever it is to be stupid. I think you can't be too clever, or you can't be clever at all, let's say, when you're doing creating, because creation has something to do with being childish a little bit, with putting aside all those intellectual barriers or intellectual, fences which help us to look at someone else's artwork through lenses. You don't need those lenses. You have to be there. Now, it sounds a bit confusing, but it's not, because once I'm in my studio and once I'm starting and once I'm in love with the story, I really didn't care about the world outside my studio. Maybe what helped me was the fact that I don't do too many picture books. I'm spoiled. I mean, I have my job at the university. I don't have to make books for my living. So the books that I do are the books that I really love, the texts that I really love. I didn't do too many of them during my life. I think less than 10 books, but each of them was chosen by me, and maybe that's the secret. Like it became my own project.
And you're able to get into your kid mode when you come to your kid mode, your Yirmi the kid mode, and that's because the illustrations are childlike and they are endearing, and they are kid friendly, but also adult friendly. So first of all, I don't understand illustrations, but as someone who deals with picture books, I can just love them for what I see in them.
Thanks.
And so I want to go back to take you now to the child Yirmi. A few words about you as a human being. Where did you grow up? And because you deal in children's literature, are you a child at heart? And how does that work with being a professor?
I grew up in Tel Aviv. And I'm very proud of it because my father grew up here in Tel Aviv as well. He was born here in Tel Aviv. It's not that common. And my boy is born in Tel Aviv. So we're 3 generations in Tel Aviv. I feel completely a patriot of my city. And I wouldn't say I had a very happy childhood. I mean, I liked reading. I drew a lot. I wrote so many stories for myself. I didn't have too many friends, and I didn't feel like I need those friends. I was concentrated in my own world, my own books that I was doing.
Was it a family thing? Were you bullied? What?
No.
Were you different?
I think I lived in a world of my own. You know, like I was writing and drawing all the time. That was my passion, and I really didn't need too much company around me to do that. I have so many books that I've written and drawn for myself, and I was even, you know, I was inventing all kinds of riddles and crosswords, and then I used to solve them myself because nobody was there to solve them. But I wasn't unhappy. Like I wanted to be left alone, as Garbo said, and I was left alone. With some, I would say my parents were not completely happy about it, but they let me do that. And I think I really had this idea that I'm going to be an author and a painter. At the time, I didn't know about the word illustrator, but I thought I would be a painter or an artist. That I knew it all the time. So that in that manner, I didn't change. Like practically, I didn't change in the last 40 years, let's say 45 years. As to being a child myself, I think it's something that I can turn on quite easily. You know, I get into my studio, which you see behind. I put some music that I like. I start dancing. I'm drawing and dancing.
Oh, okay. That's a secret tip.
Yeah, especially if my lines come out very nice, I dance for myself. You know, I perform a little dance of happiness for myself, and I think it is frightening. Like the first moment to dive into a new story is like opening a door to a new world, and it is really once you're there, once you open the door, once you cross this border from reality to the new world, then you're safe. Then you can do whatever you like in your studio. Nobody will tell you otherwise.
Okay, great. And how did you become an academic? Most illustrators illustrate. Yeah. Most authors write. And you managed to become a teacher and professor.
It was also, I would say it was a natural development of my career. I was, when I studied at the Bezalel Academy in Jerusalem, and then in about the mid-90s, when I became a professional illustrator, there were not too many of us, and the young illustrators of the time, we had a lot of success quite immediately in newspapers and some in publishing houses, because we were like 3 or 4 people that emerged as a young generation, among them Rutu Modan, which you probably know her name, the famous comics artist. Anyway, since there were not so many new illustrators, and we were quite, I would say, outstanding, just because we were few, we were asked to teach. And we said, yes, of course, why not? We can teach, very arrogantly, but it was interesting. And then the whole the education and the system of art education, higher art education in Israel, developed immensely in that time. So we were there, I was there, you know, I was there, they needed people. I wasn't bad as a teacher. And they said, okay, so do you want to step ahead? Do you want to be the manager of the illustration program or the head of the department of program? And then would you like to start the real process of being a professor? And would you like to do this and that? It just, I was there at the right time. When this whole system of art academies in Israel really exploded. It was like from 1 academy to 6 or 7 in a few years. And they simply needed people, and I was there. And I liked it.
Okay, great. But this brings me now to a question that a lot of people ask, especially emerging writers. Okay, they say, "What's going on?" You know, we walk into a bookstore in Israel. It would be Steinmatzky's, for example, or Tzomet Sfarim, and we look at the picture books that are coming out, and most of them aren't so fantastic as far as the text and illustrations are concerned. What do you have to say about that? You're also a teacher and a professor. What do you tell your students when they go to see the new books coming out? I'm sorry,
Well,
I always ask the difficult questions.
you're right.
That's what.
Yeah, this is very frustrating. On one hand side, there are so many talented young people because I know because I teach them and my colleagues are teaching them. And in the academy, I would say in this beautiful greenhouse where you get all you need and the critics is hopefully constructive and not commercial, they really bloom. And then the market is really tough in Israel, conservative. Many publishers wouldn't take a risk or would try to make things nicer. Make me a nicer face for this child. Too many teeth, or his eyes are too big, and then the stories that you get, which is really sometimes depressing. Too many stories are just, follow a pattern and they are not really dealing with fantasy or with worlds of imagination, but with everyday life, which as a visual subject matter is many times boring for me. So you have to be very stubborn as a young illustrator, to say no, I don't want to draw this book, or I don't like this story. The story is shit and I don't want to touch it.
Excuse me, where? You're in La La Land now. What illustrator is going to turn down a book offer these days?
I wouldn't agree because, the world today is much, I would say, smaller than the world 20 years ago. Many of my students, they don't even start working for the Israeli market. They just find an agent in the UK or in the States or in Europe. Many of them have their careers. We don't see the stuff here because they say, okay, I'm not dealing with this.
Yirmi, first of all, it's incredibly hard to find an agent for an illustrator. So those of your students who have found, excuse me, chapeau, I want to interview them. Okay, I won't ask them about their teachers, but I want you to send me a list of several Israeli. You can mention them now if you are proud of them.
I think one of my most successful students is Aviel Basil.
Yes, I knew you were going to mention him. Okay, I know him. Somebody I don't know.
An older one would be Shachar Kober, who is doing a lot of books in the States. I have to make, I can send you a list. Those are the obvious suspects, yeah? But
no, send me a list. Because I have to tell you. So you get a manuscript. It might be a good manuscript, but it's not right for you. You turn it down. You teach your students to turn those down.
I'm sorry, all the time I get all kinds of messages, and I'm sorry for the inconvenience of this.
It's all right. Nobody sees them.
Okay. I hear them all the time. It makes me crazy.
That's another interview.
Listen, you have to make a choice as a young artist. You have to make a choice. You can go for the commercial success, or you can go your own way.
So yeah, okay. So
which might be.
Yirmi, this is a wonderful interview because you're touching now at something that I've felt strongly about, not being an author, not an illustrator, which is I think that illustrators should be artists. I don't see the distinction. And maybe the distinction is something that you said now, that an illustrator is a commercial artist of sorts. And then you said, no, but they shouldn't be. So expound, please, Professor.
Well, picture books. We're talking about picture books here, yeah? Because you have a lot of other possibilities. They can they can make stage design, they can make posters, they can make shopping windows design. They have a lot of things, and they do that as illustrators. They can share, they can take part in all kinds of startups or high-tech teams where they are needed as image makers. But let's concentrate on picture books. Like, I would say that the picture book is the first form of art that a child meets in his or her life. Yeah, this is crucial. This means responsibility. So when a child meets, that's the first art he's going to see and he's going to meet. Even before he knows, maybe music is a little bit earlier. I would say maybe he can hear before he can watch pictures or watch drawings. But this is extremely important, and I would say a picture book at its best, even an educational picture book, is a form of art, which is defined, I would say, target audience, or target. You have to be responsible as an illustrator. You have to understand it. I mean, sometimes it means sometimes you have to make some compromises. Okay, if they tell you, listen, the image is too frightening or too sophisticated, and you say, okay. Sometimes you say, okay, I got you. I understand you, and I got you. But sometimes you have to stand and say, no, I know better because this is my profession. I am the visualizer. I'm the image maker. I know better. Trust me. And sometimes they would trust you, the publishers. I mean, it's also a very big question of personality, of kindness. I mean, if you say, this is not for you, you understand nothing, you probably won't get a job. But you can do, you have your ways. And so that's why I always think that a career is not just how talented you are or how beautiful you draw, but also how humane you are. How can you share, cooperate, work with other people, convey your visual ideas, make people trust you that you know what you're doing. And I think eventually, the market moves. Of course, we have all those books that you can't say who drew them. They all look the same. And they all look like an output of the same computer in the same, on the same evening sometimes. Yeah, they all look the same color, the same. But not all of the books are like that, and it's a struggle. And I think you have to understand it. When you're a student, you're spoiled because your teachers tell you, wonderful, go on like that. When you're not a student, you have to say that for yourself. And you have to decide that you have a day job and your artwork. This is an advice that many times I give to my students. Okay, keep your path or your trail of artwork and support yourself with day job, which is not humiliating. There are a lot of day jobs in illustrations, in the field of illustration, which are not humiliating. For instance, educational books for schools. This is not artistic, but this is for a good cause, so we can make a living.
Yirmi, well, I have to ask you again. Where is the line? You yourself used the word art interchangeably with illustration a few minutes ago. Where is that line drawn? What is the distinction between an illustrator who puts his kishkas into a story, right, and an artist who puts his kishkas into a painting? Where's this line? Is there such a line?
Well, you use the word kishkes. If the kishkes are there, it's art. Good or bad, but it's there. You said it.
Yeah, kishkes is your guts in Yiddish. Your innards. Your I don't know. People will understand.
Yeah.
So it wasn't. If your kishkes are in it, then it's art.
Most cases, yeah. Or it's just a disease, and you have to go to the doctor. What I'm saying is, art always, and an artist always tries to tell you something new about his experience, about his point of view in life, about his world. It's not always new to everybody, but an artist, that's the basic artistic, I would say, impulse is to tell something new about the human experience in the world. Those are big words,
Yeah, but
I would say the picture book.
Yeah.
Should I go on? Yeah.
You just get me excited, you see, so I have to jump in. Maybe I shouldn't, but we're
Please.
both okay. So you have to feel when you're illustrating a picture book, the illustrator, that it's your book.
Yeah.
But it's not your book. It's not your book. A few words about that. I had to jump in. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but it's mine eventually, because it's not, you know, it's written, let's say, when you look at the cover and it says written by and illustrated by, I don't agree with that. I think it's one piece. And the child wouldn't agree with that. Every child reader would say it's one piece, it's one unity. You know, you can't separate it. If it's a good book, it's one. That's why we have many authors which are also illustrators, like the great names like Maurice Sendak or Tommy Ungerer. You know, can you separate the style, the illustrated style, from the illustrated, from the style of the text, from the subject matter of the text? You can't. And I think the magic comes out when you can't say this was written and this was drawn. It's one piece.
So let's say I write a story and you illustrate it, and you love the story and you put your kishkas in and it becomes beautiful artwork. What does it say on the cover?
No, it does. It's okay. I mean, nobody would take the credit of the author, yeah. But I mean, when you ask me, why do I call it my book? That's it. It becomes my book. And if someone else would draw the same text, it would probably come out with another solution for the problems that the book.
I firmly believe that you're correct. So, what is your message for authors? Okay, so because a lot of people that are watching and listening are aspiring authors. As a gorgeous artist, as a professor of illustration and cartoons, what is your advice for really picture book authors?
Choose well and let go. Choose your illustrator well, and then let go. Let him or her do whatever they think. That's the best way. Don't interfere. As an author, the author knows his words, he knows his sentences, controls the language. Let someone else who controls the second language has his say or her say. Just trust them. But choose well and let go.
So you think that maybe because in traditional publishing in the States, that's how it works. You really don't get to talk much with your illustrator unless you're a very famous writer, and even then, perhaps you shouldn't, according to what you're saying. But in that case, isn't it better to have a writer and an illustrator, and then to get two worlds for the price of one?
I didn't get the question.
Okay. Many illustrators who are also authors prefer to write and illustrate their own stories.
Okay.
But maybe the better approach is to illustrate somebody else's story and then have this blend of two worlds into one that makes a spectacular book.
I don't think there's a big difference in the outcome. I mean, it could work like that, and it could work like that. Let's go back to Maurice Sendak. I guess.
I know, but Maurice Sendak is maybe not a good example because he's one of a kind.
But he was drawing for other authors as well. Quite successfully.
Yeah.
You have some very beautiful books which were not written by him. That's why I'm saying, and those are beautiful books, and the books which he wrote himself are beautiful as well. And you have some more modern examples of this double talent. I mean, sometimes I would say another thing, that a story written by an illustrator tends to be very visual, and that's the nature of it. Tends to be very visual, and sometimes the story written by an illustrator becomes, I would say, the text sometimes becomes the slave of the image. It's not always the best way. So I would say there are advantages here and there, you know.
I love this.
Yeah.
So what other pieces of advice do you have for authors when you come to look at a text? As say, okay, you looked at 100 rooms and you said, this is mine in 20 seconds. You said, I'm going to make this story mine. When do you look at a text and say, this isn't mine?
This is a very simple question and a very simple answer. Each one of us, not just the illustrators, also the authors, the editors, each one of us has his own world of visual reference. Let's say, when I say the word abroad, you might think now about Paris and I might think about Boston, okay? Those are two different cities. It's one word, but our reference, cultural reference, preferences, the inner vocabulary, visual vocabulary that we have is totally different, and that's okay. That's why some stories are beautifully illustrated by some artists, and some stories are horribly illustrated by other artists, because maybe it's a question of the subject matter, the inner subject matter, the inner you, this sum up of your experience, what you've seen, what you've read in life, books that you've seen, movies that you've seen, places which you visited. All this is as an illustrator, is your visual inner vocabulary. So this should somehow react in a very natural way to the text. And if this reaction doesn't happen, leave it.
Yirmi, I was hoping that we would have some, in our discussion, we would have some, I don't know if vision is the right word, but, and we have, and you've really enlightened me on, and I hope the audience on several matters. So you see, when I'm writing a story, essentially I have to get you excited. But I don't know you, see, so I don't know whether to write abroad, Boston, Paris, or what have you. So, but I'm inferring from what you said that the problem with picture books is the editor who looks at the text in a publishing house and chooses the illustrator. He or she, they're making a very important decision.
Right. You make a good point here. I think a good editor knows or feels or has this insight about which illustrator would be the best for this text or for that text. For example, I'll tell you something about myself. I don't like to draw children. I don't know how to draw children. I'm very good with animals, very good with little gentlemen and old people and all kind of funny monsters. But kids are not for me. And some editors in Israel, they know that already. And when I got this book, the editor, Ms. Renanit Parshani, she said, I know it's for you. She sent me the book. Said, I know it's for you because it's about this little guy who is a little weird guy that walks in the world. And I said, no children? She said, no children, no horses, which I hate drawing as well. I said, okay, let's read it. Let's send it to me. I want to read it. So this is a very, sometimes those things are very stupid. You don't want to eat pasta? Don't eat pasta. Don't send me recipes for pasta. I'm not eating pasta. I'm not cooking pasta.
So the author has to have some kind of sensitivity for his or her partner that he doesn't know who it is. The editor has to have sensitivity in doing this blind match. And the illustrator has to take on work that he or she feels can be his or her own in terms of the characters, in terms of the story. And I think maybe that's what doesn't happen in a perfect synchrony sometimes.
This is a very nice observation. And since you added this guy, this editor, yeah, you added this to this equation. I think the editors are extremely important here in making the right connection between the two artists, the author and the visualizer, let's say. Mm-hmm. The editor is extremely crucial here, and sometimes editors. I mean, most of the editors, of course.
1 second, Yirmi, I'm listening. I have to plug in my computer. Keep talking.
What I'm saying is that sometimes editors react not only to the artistic needs of the book, but to the, let's say, some commercial needs. And then when the problems start, the problem starts when the editor says, okay, this is maybe not the best illustrator for this job, but this illustrator sells, or this illustrator, I can tell them, you do this and that, and he would do that for me.
Yeah, it's back to the commercial thing. Or, you know, this one, I have more control over.
I can control him. This illustrator will do whatever I tell him. It will change colors, no problem. And once you start interfering, you start destroying many cases. Sometimes your advisors are very good as an editor. If you're a good editor, your advice is really excellent. But if you're an editor who doesn't really think about the book, but thinks about other things like what is my publisher going to tell me, or is it going to look like some other book which was successful and I want to copy it, or would it be politically correct enough or unpolitically correct enough? Would it fit this market, that market?
Drawing to a trend.
Is it trendy enough?
Yeah, and you're talking, and I'm thinking of some editor telling Maurice Sendak, hey, you know, your monsters look too much like your aunts and uncles. You got to change that. The great thing about Sendak is he didn't listen really to anybody, did he? Yirmi, we're closing this wonderful interview, and I want to thank you so much for making the time. Can you show us a few double spreads, a few more from your incredible book? And we're going to again say that it's 100 Rooms, written by Haya Shenhav, published by Kalaniot after many years, and Professor Yirmi Pinkus, academic, artist, and illustrator. You've done these gorgeous illustrations.
I will tell you a nice story. When I was drawing the book, my child was at the time, and at school, it was at the time he was 8 or 9 years old, 8, I think. And I asked the schoolmaster, can I come to the class with the sketches? I want to show the kids how do you create a book from the beginning to the end. And she said, yes, why not? Just share it with us. And I made some sessions with the kids. And then I came with my sketches and I showed it to them. And then I had this double spread. And they loved it. They helped me to, you know, all kinds of small things, ideas. And they said, okay, they like this. And when I drew this double spread, I had a problem here. See this watermelon?
Yeah.
I just put it because I had an empty space here. So I said, like, okay, I put something there, and I decided to put a watermelon there. And then on the next double spread, and I showed it to the kids, and that was the double spread, and the kids said, oh, lovely, now he has his house as he's counting his rooms, but they said, but excuse me, where's the watermelon? And I said, oops. I totally forgot about the watermelon and just put it there just to fill up an empty space. And I said, it was a lesson for me about how kids look at everything. And I said, well, okay. I went home and I added the watermelon. And I said, well, you ate the watermelon. That's what left. That's the leftovers. So the next time I met the class, I showed, and then they were satisfied. Another interesting thing was that at the end, when the guy has his room, I was thinking, okay, as the child I was, and I said, this is the 100 room, the room that he keeps for himself at the end. So say, okay, of course, he must have a picture of his mother, the photograph of his mother. He must have his teddy bear. He must have his pillow, his bed, his shoes, a bowl, all kinds of stuff. And then the kid said, what? Didn't he take a TV set to his room? I don't watch TV too much, and I'm not. It's not one of my habits, and so I didn't think about it, you know. And I said, "Okay, I'm over 50. they are not yet 10. It was too late to add a TV because everything was already at the end." I said, "Well, I still have some things I have to learn from those kids." And it was a beautiful, and the funniest thing about it was that at the end they said, when the book was published, they said, okay, but before you print the book, please don't forget, we want our credit. And if you look at the inside, in the Hebrew edition of the book, it's written inside, thanks to the class of this and this at this and this school in Tel Aviv for their help, because they really insisted of being having their credential, you know, in the book.
And deservedly so.
Yeah, of course. It was beautiful. It was really a very interesting session, like making the book with the kids or having them reacting to my jokes, to my visual jokes, to my ideas, see if it works out, if it doesn't work, if they understand me, if they don't understand me. Many times you do stuff, you illustrate, and you're not sure if you really understood. So it was really a very nice channel of.
So this has been a wonderful conversation with Professor Yirmi Pinkus, the academic, the artist, and the child.
Mel, I thank you for this opportunity to talk to you.
It's a great pleasure. I can come to Shenkar and we can have a coffee sometime.
We will do that.
Okay, and I'm just going to thank you again and shout out for your beautiful book, 100 Rooms. Haya Shenhav wrote it many years ago, and you brought it to a new life with brand new colors and gorgeous illustrations. We shout out to Kalaniot in the States who published it. Sifriat Pijamo, PJ, who took it out of the attic and helped spread the word, and probably published many books for children here and in the United States. And I'm Mel Rosenberg, the host of the Children's Literature Channel of the New Books Network. And I've been here with Yirmi Pinkus, and I enjoyed every single second of it. Yirmi, thanks a million.
Thanks, Mel. It was a delight.
We'll talk more. Toda, as we say in Hebrew. Bye.
Toda.